Hey everyone, it's the Oxley Bomb MotoGP podcast, back again, whether you like it or not. With me, Matt Oxley.
Of course they like
what
it.
Am I? I don't know what I am anymore. And Peter Bomb, who's an all-round good
Also
guy,
doesn't know who he is anymore.
World Championship winning crew chief, and all that kind of stuff. And so this is the weekend between the infamous 2026 Catalan Grand Prix and the 2026 Italian Grand Prix.
I need a weekend off. That one was big enough for 2 weeks.
Yeah. We're still all kind of, what a weekend. It'll be remembered for a long time in the future. And especially at the moment, because I think what we should start off with, Peter, is, so we've got Alex Marquez, vertebrae, small fracture in his C7 vertebrae. Probably not a big thing, but you don't want to rush back with a fractured vertebrae.
A ribs and a long as well?
And he's got, sorry, what?
A ribs and a long?
No, I don't think so.
I thought he did ribs as well. Wow.
No, I just heard a C7 vertebra and a collarbone, doesn't matter which, I think is right. That's what I heard. So collarbone, he's already had it pinned. A vertebra, more tricky. You cannot go racing. Well, you shouldn't if you've got a cracked vertebrae.
Oh, that's the correct way of saying.
Because if you fall off again, you can be paralysed. It's a big deal. So we don't know when he's going to come back. Johan Zarco, who's destroyed that knee that got caught up in the back end of Pecco Bagnaia's bike, really horrific. He has destroyed all the ligaments in that knee and the meniscus and all that kind of stuff. Wow. I know a lot about knee injuries. So that's going to take you don't fix a knee like you fix a bone or anything else. It's the most complicated joint in the human body. It really is, and it's really important as well. They're riding motorbikes, not walking or running, but you use your legs an awful lot to ride a MotoGP bike, and you can't really use your legs if you haven't got knees.
Plus, where Zarco is in his life, his age and his career, he wants to heal it properly because he prefers to walk the rest of his life. When you're 20, you don't care because you think it's not going to happen to you. He's not 20 anymore.
Exactly. So, Peter, assuming it's going to be a little while before both are back, Zarco and Alex Marquez, I think we already kind of mentioned the Zarco replacement is fairly obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, who else than Aleix?
Aleix Espargaro, yeah. Assuming he's ready to ride again, because he also fucked a bunch of vertebrae. Properly when he crashed at Sepang a couple of months back. So
that's not that long ago actually. And other than Aleix, they don't have a fast rider. Honda doesn't have a good depth of replacement riders that are fast enough. They have not even somebody for Superbike that's half decent. So
Yeah. And I guess I'm kind of looking at the World Superbike calendar for Alex Marquez replacements because Nicola Bulega is the obvious.
First, it's always Pirro first.
But Pirro isn't really fast enough anymore, is he?
You need a bike on the grid. That was it.
With the greatest respect.
They're not going to lap him, and so he's the first guy for sure. But it could be. It could be a really good opportunity for rumors for Ducati to test the waters with Nicola.
Yeah, with Bulega. He can do. I'm looking at the Superbike Championship. He can't do Mugello, but they could use Pirro for that on the Gresini bike. And that he can do. Bulega can do Hungary, Bruno, and Assen. So that would be perfect, depending on when Alex comes back. But I think so. So we might see Espargaro, and we might see Pirro and Bulega over the next few weeks. The next thing we want to talk about is a story that Oriol Puigdemont broke on autosport.com or motorsport.com a few days ago. The manufacturers want to go to one bike only per rider. And everybody screams in horror, Moto2 has this, Moto3 has this, World Superbike has this, World Supersport has this. BSB has this. Basically every racing championship has a one bike only thing now, which you could argue, well, that's obvious then. Let's go to the same with MotoGP. Or you could argue the opposite. Well, no, hang on. MotoGP is MotoGP. It's meant to be the one. Apparently, it's the only Grand Prix class left since, they don't even call Moto2 and Moto3 races Grand Prix anymore, really. So What do you feel about going to one bike? Is it a good idea? Is it a horrific idea, or what?
For the teams and for the riders, it's a terrible idea, because it becomes more a lottery. You can't afford to have a biggie at most of the time in the weekend. You just can't, because of the timing schedule. You just can't, and that makes it more of a lottery, because you don't always crash by yourself. People can help you with that, or there can be a mechanical reason for that, and then you're screwed. So bad for that. Yeah, it saves cost. Clearly, it saves cost, because it's not just the bike, it's also the people that you need to have two bikes always prepared, so you have less people. People is expensive. Bikes, not so, because if you don't crash, you save 5 bikes compared to somebody who crashes every day. It's not the bike, it's the people. The people that need money and that need flights and that need hotels. Anyway. So overall, I think it's a bad idea, because if I was Liberty, I would say, oh, wait, we're just going to try to put as many bikes always on the grid as we can. And suddenly we have one bike less in practice sessions, or maybe two bikes less. And then, but the good thing, Matt, could be because Dorna likes the lottery system. They don't like a guy that's obviously going to win the races if he doesn't make mistakes. They would love to have a sprinkler that they can switch on every now and then on the track, just for the shake it up a little bit, stir it up. So, but that's the good thing. If somebody makes whatever mistakes or has a mechanical, suddenly he's not even in Q1 and he will start dead last, and he was so fast in the free practice, and then he will make a super race starting from the last and finishing 6th, and everybody's excited. That's an attractive perspective from Dorna's point of view. But there will be, the downside is there will be probably a couple of times less bikes on the grid.
Yeah, I mean, well, not on the grid, but in the session. Because the whole thing, what's got me thinking
you said it can also be on the grid if you do a good one in warm-up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's as easy to do. You don't make it.
But they have a spare bike in the back, don't they?
Well, that's where the grey area starts. You don't have two bikes. I mean, Superbike teams and all of them, they don't have two bikes, but they have a nearly ready bike in the back of there's just not an engine in it, and so on and so on. Exactly. I'm from the good old times when even Supersport had two bikes, and that's when we learned, it's really difficult to make two bikes the same. Because starting from production bikes, you can have a head angle difference from more than half a degree between two bikes that you build up properly. So we learned to use ride height measurements. We learned to think really well about how to measure your chassis. I remember uncrating 6 CBR 600s and ending up with the two chassis that were the closest to each other for every rider, because they're not all very, very close. This is 1,000 years ago. But
Sure. I mean, the funny thing about all this is obviously we've had Liberty recently saying we want all the teams to have replacement riders, permanent replacement riders. So even if somebody falls off on a Friday and hurts themselves, so they can't race for ride for the rest of the weekend, you just drag your replacement rider out of the hospitality where hopefully he hasn't been drinking too heavily, and you say, right, it's your turn now, and off he goes. The idea being that you always have 22 bikes riding around in circles, entertaining people.
I got that. I see the point.
But, I see the point. More tricky to make it happen. But this idea, and it comes from the manufacturers, when I first heard about the one bike idea, I thought it was Liberty trying to reduce costs, and thereby reducing costs, they can get away with paying the manufacturers less.
Yeah.
But actually, this is the manufacturer's idea. And it's like, well, why would the manufacturers want something? Okay, to reduce costs and stuff. But what they are asking for, and I think this is possibly quite clever, is exactly the opposite of what Liberty want, right? So they're saying, we only want one bike. And then, but maybe Marc Marquez will crash halfway through FP2 or whatever. And, his bike will be in the gravel and he'll get back to and so you'll miss Marc Marquez from half of that session, and maybe you'll miss, another rider from another session, when somebody crashes and they can't immediately get the bike repaired. So to me, I wonder whether the MSMA are thinking, let's think of a rule that we don't really want and that Liberty don't really want, and we'll use that as a bargaining chip. So, we're having this massive, really massive war between
it's big.
Liberty and MSMA. It's getting nasty. And just going back a little bit further, Valencia last year, I went to see Lynn Jarvis, who used to work for the Yamaha, now works for the MSMA as a kind of freelance gun for hire, and he's one of their chief negotiators. He's one of their chief negotiators, and I walked up to him and said, "Lynn, I just want to have a quick chat with you about how the talks are going with Liberty." And he just looked at me and said, "There is no war." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Okay, there is a war.
No, exactly. That's the old journalist. If somebody says something isn't happening, then I'm not shagging your wife. No, that means you're shagging your wife. So I think the MSMA is saying, let's pitch this to Liberty and say, we really want this rule, one bite rule, and then Liberty are like, well, hang on, that's that will be less bikes on the grid in some going around in circles at some point of the weekend, and then Liberty said no, MSMA rather said no, we really want this rule, so then they can use it as a bargaining chip. You think of a rule, something that you don't really want, but you put it onto the battlefield and use that as your bargaining chip. So I wonder whether this is literally just some kind of smokescreen, because that's how these things work, isn't it?
For a guy who all the time tells me I'm a crappy businessman, you're pretty smart here, cunning guy. But I find it difficult. It makes a lot of sense the way you say it, but also I said earlier then, well, maybe Donna likes the lottery ID. Because things will happen, and if unexpected things, if there's drama sells. It's always good, even if we hate the situation.
But a bike lying in the gravel trap or being towed back to the gravel to the garage while the rider limps back to the garage and sits out the rest of the session. That's not drama.
No, but drama is that the expected rider that did win 3 races in a row now suddenly is on Saturday morning on his ass, and the bike is in 2 pieces, and he will not even make it in readying for Q1 or Q2. And you will start last from the grid, but he's Marc Marquez. Maybe we have to watch Sunday what he can do from the last.
But the exact opposite also applies, because if you come into the last race and the guy is second, and he might beat the guy in first and win the championship, and suddenly you've screwed the whole championship through a stupid rule. So you can look at everything.
It's really weird because the cost is always a thing, and at the same time, it's not a thing for me. It's not a huge. It definitely it saves cost, but not a biggie. I really don't see where this comes from or why. So I think you're in the right direction. Why it comes now? Because it could have been 1, 2, 3, 4 years ago. I mean, we had Corona, we had bigger problems, and then nobody came up with this idea.
Yeah, so, I think they've just thrown it in there as a bit of a bomb. Like, have some of this, mate. Whack. I mean, because the other thing with cost saving, if you wanted to save costs, the obvious thing to do would be to go to CRT engines. Because at the moment, you think next year we're going to have MotoGP bikes with about 260, 265 horsepower engines, and we're going to have world superbikes with 250, 255 horsepower engines. Why are you building these insanely expensive MotoGP engines when just there for basically zero cost is a bike that is an engine that makes pretty much the same power and costs a zillion times less? It doesn't make it. Just seems.
Now you're oversimplifying things, because if these tunes engines in Superbike, they look quite different from the serious prototype engines that they're seeing that they're using in MotoGP. It's really
an engine. It's a bit bigger. It's a bit heavier. Who cares?
Okay, okay. Then Supersport 300 is suddenly the best race in the world. There's a couple of bikes on the track, No, it's not. It's different. It's not really. It's not the same. But they have. I get your point. They have to be careful what they're doing here, and where they are going. But since we come back to this item from every different angle already for months in a row, and it's all about the tires. With the tires, you got everybody at the balls. But since Pirelli is a commercial partner and not, and Dorna is not in charge of the tires, then there is a huge gray area.
But again, if you say it all comes back, as we say, it all comes down to the tires. Again, why are you bothering creating these? I mean, I love prototype engines. to me, MotoGP, all Grand Prix racing should be prototype engines. I hate the fact that Moto2 uses road bike engines. I hate the fact that Moto3 will soon use road bike engines. It's fucking Grand Prix racing, for God's sake, And I'm just being devil's advocate, because have they even thought about this? That they ride racing these insanely expensive MotoGP prototype engines that make about 5% more power than a superbike engine. And you could argue that the kind of element for development of an internal combustion engine is pretty tiny now, isn't it? If internal combustion engines have been around on motorbikes for 130, 140 years, and if you looked at the curve of development, it would be very steep at the beginning, and then it would gradually level out. And I think now, the fastest MotoGP bike now is Brad Binder's RC16 from 2023. So they're not really getting any faster.
It's pretty flat. The line of development is pretty flat, and it comes down to having access to the right companies with the right materials. But basically, everybody knows what everybody knows. So it's really, really close. It's just a couple of choices that you made with the layout of your engine, and so on, and so on, and so on. So, Okay, let's get back to the replacement riders, because we were having which typically we do. We start talking before the pod, and then suddenly we say, no, stop talking because we have to save this for... one of the things we came on was replacement riders, because for me, it's going to be... I saw an opportunity, like we need the replacement now for 2 riders, but at the same time, where do we get fast enough replacement riders? So my idea was basically to say... If I can imagine that a manufacturer like Honda, Ducati offers a good Moto2 rider, the one that really fits this profile that I'm going to paint now, and say, okay, you stop riding a racing Moto2, and we do an X amount of tests. It has to be enough days of testing on our bikes, and you get an X amount of wildcards as well. And at the same time, you're the replacement rider. You go to all the MotoGPs, you have your scooter, you have your headset, you're traveling around the track. You're the perfect rider coach as well at the same time. So you stay involved with everything really close, and you bring your leathers with you. Now, if I was Barry Baltus, who's already 3-4 years now in Moto2, last year he finished third. He's probably not going to finish third this year because it's super tight on the top. But the way he rides the Moto2 bike, for me, it's not just him, but he's a good example for me because he's already a couple of years in Moto3. And at some point, you're not improving anymore in this class. He's still very young. He's very, very young, Barry Baltus. I will jump on this offer if I got it from Honda. Yeah. Obviously, you have to do more than 3 days testing and more than 2 wildcards. But then you're like the fastest available guy for this manufacturer. Beautiful. Stop racing Moto2 because that it's too super, super narrow on the top. If some team found some magic setting in the shock absorber and then they blow you by 15 seconds for 3 races in a row and suddenly you look slow. It's just so small, so narrow on the top in MotoGP. If you already proved you're really good like Barry does, there's a couple of other guys as well, but not somebody that's already 6 years in Moto2 and finally starts to do sometimes a podium. You don't need him. And you also don't need the rookie that just learned his ways in Moto2. So there is a sweet spot between like 3 years at least in the Moto2, but not 6 years. The way you ride a bike, you have to manhandle the bike. You don't have to be still a Moto3 rider that sits always inside the fairing. You have to really smash the thing around and have it moving underneath you. Be fast with used tires, be aggressive, but also be smart. Take it as it comes. If you're in P8 and it's only a couple of laps to go, then it is then don't bin it, and so on and so on. I can continue this profile.
But when you first kind of talked about this, I thought this is nonsense. Somebody like, no young guy is going to say, I'm going to give up racing, getting my adrenaline hit every weekend or every other weekend all the way through the summer racing to do this. But if you're a Moto2 rider, you're probably earning stuff all, right?
Yeah.
Unless you've got some good personal... If you're earning 50, 100K, I would think you're doing pretty well. Yeah? Wouldn't you agree? Because a lot of them are bringing money. If they've got sponsor, that they have to give some of that to the team. And I spoke to a British a superbike rider a few days ago, whose parents had spent £300,000.
That's pretty silly.
On getting him to where he was. No, well, it is, but I don't think it's that abnormal, in fact. You know, if you're coming through Moto2, Moto3, you know, Europe, Junior World Championship, unless you're Quadraro or Marquez, you are going to be paying £200,000, £300,000, £400,000, euros, dollars. They're all pretty much the same now. A year, you know? So, I mean, I do sometimes think that modern racing is a bit of a Ponzi scheme. You know what I mean? It's just, the finances of it just don't add up, which I think Liberty Media might find out soon. But so what I'm saying is that I can see that, yeah, maybe, as you say, Barry Baltus would go, okay, yeah, maybe. So instead of being earning, let's say 100,000 a year, I'm going to be earning $500,000 a year, $750,000 a year. I mean, who wouldn't go for that, you know?
Even I hope when they're that young, I hope that they don't choose for the money. I really hope that they see what I see. I'm spending a lot of laps in different situations, usually without any pressure, on the best bike in the world from this manufacturer. And I'm the fastest guy available as soon as somebody has an injury. Sure. So, and this is perfect.
But also, we're really getting into this is what drinking nice Italian wine does to you. So I'm suddenly getting ideas. You know, you could have Honda could, like, let's say Honda or whoever signs Barry Baltus or whoever. He's got a guaranteed number of wildcards. He's got guaranteed number of testing. And most importantly, and what I was going to say is that this is kind of going more towards the car racing concept. Yeah. And we are becoming, like it or not, more and more like car racing, whereby that's how you get into Formula One. You become the third driver, the test driver for Williams or Red Bull or whatever. And then they're like, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing or she's doing. Let's take them to the next level. So, but you could also, that Honda at the same time could say, okay, we'll give you a Moto2 bike with your little team for, you'll be wildcard at these 4 races and you can do Moto2 at these few races if, you know, we don't need you.
No, you can't motor because no team is interested in a rider that sometimes shows up coming from a whole different bike.
No. I'm saying that Honda would finance that team for like half a dozen races. Exactly. So it doesn't cost a lot. If you're doing they would just become a third rider at Honda Team Asia, for example, you know, at 6 races. I don't know. Could work. Yeah. Just to keep the guy race sharp, you know, which is what you've got to do. Okay, and why we were starting to talk about this cost-saving thing in a very roundabout manner, we are getting into one of the big rule changes for next year, for the 2027 rules, which most people don't really talk about. We all talk about aero and ride heights and 850cc engines, but next year we are going to have GPS. What does GPS stand for, Peter?
Global Positioning System.
Global Positioning System. So it was a military thing to start with, and it's now what we all use every day in Google Maps and everything like that. We had it in MotoGP many years ago. It was how all the electronic systems were kind of governed. Your bike would know where it is on the racetracks thanks to satellites up in the sky telling it where it is, and it would say, oh, I'm at turn 4 now. I'll therefore apply this much traction control and this much engine braking. And then at turn 11, we're at turn 11 now, I'll do this and that. And I seem to remember Nicky Hayden's Ducati, when he was at Ducati, so this would probably be in like 2008, 2009, 2010, something like that. His Ducati got confused. Its GPS went AWOL. And kind of, so he'd get to turn 12 and it was suddenly giving him turn 4 traction control. And, you know, I mean, can be pretty tricky. But GPS is back next year, right?
Yeah, there has been, I think you forgot that, there has been a rule that forbids the use of GPS for the control systems.
Sure.
So the only GPS, and you still see 2 or 3 GPS antennas on every MotoGP bike, wonder where they go. Well, not to the ECU officially, and I think they're not going there. One is for the broadcasting system. The other one, wait a second. Okay, before I get really confused, they don't have it on the issue by rule. And at that time, that rule was made more to calm the people down, because it was early days in electronic world time. And people were thinking, wow, once you have electronics, everything is going to be super, super complicated. And the rider that has the best electronics has the best life in the world and can win it with his fingers in his nose, which is in the end not true. So because we didn't know, we were expecting the worst things coming from electronics. And one of the things Dorna then said, okay, no GPS on it. And that calmed everybody down, because without GPS, what can you do? Well, it's the easiest thing to do without GPS, because you got wheel speeds and acceleration sensors. And if you work a little bit clever with them, you know on the meter where you are on the track. And so they always know where they are on the track. They know where they are. Unless the rider decides to do something funny. And that's when the whole dashboard gets red. I think we had it before in this podcast. Lorenzo was red in sector 1 in Mugello. He was somewhere red sectors, and then he suddenly came back to the box, because the lap before he took the shortcut, like you can do in some tracks. Sepang, Mugello, you can do a shortcut back to the box and start a new lap again. Well, the calculations, the algorithm in his ECU wasn't prepared for that. So it says, it says alarm. I don't know where I am. Calm down. Now they got it all sorted out. They got it all sorted out.
So we don't need GPS for that. Why we've got GPS back next year?
Exactly.
Why is this?
The thing is, we get GPS sharing. Not back, we get GPS sharing. So still, the teams cannot connect GPS to the issue, which they don't really need, in my opinion, anymore at the moment. But there will be highly accurate GPS measurements on all the bikes. Maybe you've seen over this year and since the end of last year, a certain company doing a lot of tests with Dorna on all the factory bikes with high quality GPS systems. The targets,
how accurate are they? How accurate
10 centimeters.
Are they? 10 centimeters. That's insane.
Yeah, but that's what people like to hear. But the biggest problem, one of the bigger problems from high accuracy, is repeatability. Keep it accurate, and also having the speed accurate. When these bikes accelerate or brake, this is a super high change of speed, which is so difficult to keep track of if you're only looking at a couple of satellites. And if you do that 5, 10, 20, if you do 20 times a second, which is a high frequency to check for GPS positions, it's still really difficult to have an accurate speed. So this company does that. And the result, and that's where I'm going to with the whole story, from next year on, let's still call them Dorna, they collect all this GPS information from all the bike and then share it. So the teams can, within a couple of minutes after the session, download everybody else's GPS information.
So it's not live. It's not live. It's after the session.
Yeah, it's after the session. Okay. So, and it's not for you or me. It's not for the press, especially not for me. It is there only for the teams themselves. So they have it available somewhere on a server. And what they have is a series of GPS coordinates, really highly accurate, and a lot of them coordinates. And with that, you have the driven line on the racetrack. And with that, you can also calculate the speed, because if that clock is ticking and you have position here A, B, C, you can calculate the speed. And so that's what they're going to share with each other. It's really like I'm having a 4-star Michelin restaurant, but part of my kitchen's open for everybody to come and see how I cook.
Now you're talking kind of language I understand.
I don't talk drinking yet. Get that later.
No, so that's interesting. So I believe the idea of this is it will save teams money, because then they won't need their videometry people around the track, which is a huge current thing. Every team has a video guy or several video guys that goes around the track with a very solidly mounted camera, videos every rider, and you can compare lines, corner speed, who's exactly down to like the 1,000th of a second of a lap time where people are making time. But to me, they'll still use that, won't they?
Yeah, they will still use that. They will still use that.
But so to me, the real reason for this is to create better graphics, isn't it? Wouldn't you say?
I think the real reason is to make sure that to help everybody who is not the fastest. Bring the field closer together, I think you will say in British, in English. Okay. I think that's what they tell it. But when Corrado was, Cecchinelli was explaining me this, he was smiling himself like, I don't really believe it myself, but this is what I need to tell you. Sorry, Corrado, if you're listening, but this is how I got it at that moment. You shouldn't have laughed that loudly. So it is for that reason, because people will still be with the camera there. Because if a bike does a better deceleration, has a better corner entry with a better speed, you still want to see how he does it. How is the rider moving over his bike? How is the bike's position? Is it fully sideways or has it the wheels exactly in line? Video will still tell you that. So I think it is more to bring everybody a little bit closer to one another. But
why will it do that? Because even the teams at the back have videometry guys videoing everything.
Yeah, but the GPS isn't. I see it as two things. It's just an extra thing that the teams get. And if you're suffering, if you're Yamaha and you're still thinking, well, my braking is beautiful, but I lose it on the acceleration. Well, don't be surprised. Okay, but you can see this with videometry as well, that it's not always like that, because people always think they're brave and the best on the brakes, because you always close the gap on everybody on the brakes, and you always see everybody disappear under acceleration. Even the best riders are forgiven to make that mistake. So with the video, you don't make the mistake. With somebody else's data, you also don't make the mistake. Because seeing that somebody is better in the braking is one thing, but seeing if he is better in the initial braking, but nothing better than you on the turn-in braking is very, very important to know.
Sure. Data, I mean, that is the funny thing, isn't it? That even with shared GPS, videometry, riders will still think, I'm getting it all back on the brakes and the bastard's got more power than me. No. The reason you think that is because at point A, during the braking phase, you are going considerably faster than the guy in front of you at that exact moment. So you are catching him because he's deeper into the corner than you are. And on the way out, when you're accelerating, he is further into the acceleration phase than you are. So at any given moment in the acceleration phase, he is going faster than you. Therefore, he will be getting away from you. And I can remember thinking that, I'm getting all back on the brakes.
Because you get it back you think you get it back on the brakes.
Yeah. But you don't.
It's the famous harmonica thing.
You have to consider the corner as a whole thing. You know?
If it will be possible to do a whole lap exactly on half a second from somebody else, at 300 kilometers per hour, that will be 50 meters. Yeah. But in the middle of the slowest corner of the track, you will be I'm really good. I'm nearly on his rear wheel
much less,
until you start accelerating and he pulls away. So you're sure he has a better engine.
It'll just go like a yo-yo all the way through the lap. That won't, but it'll end up. You only find out the true number at the end of the lap. I mean, I find that 10 centimeters accuracy is pretty astonishing.
Yeah, it is. Pretty astonishing. It definitely is. To give away a little bit, because I know that company that does that. And what Corrado already also admitted to me, saying, okay, we are working on this is like a different topic, but they are connected. Bear with me. Dorna are working on a system to improve safety on the tracks for the riders.
Yeah.
And not so much by working on the track, but more working on trying to avoid that riders hit each other. So if you have on your bike a very highly accurate GPS system, and you have your 6-axis sensor there, then first of all, you know exactly when a bike crashed or not. Because it's like your airbag system that you have on the bike as well. And that can be automatically sent by radio transmitting, just like the TV channel, to race control. And the race control will also be able to see immediately if the bike is in the gravel or in the middle of the track, which is perfect because it's on the middle of the track. Then the next step could be to, by the same radio system, send all the bikes that coming toward that position, the warning system that does something with the dashboard, with doors, with the visor, whatever. They are working already for years on this crash protection system, as they call it, because detection system, whatever. But since they learned that this 2D data recording company can make the GPS so super accurate, they sort of combine these two projects together. They want to have this highly accurate GPS system combined there as well.
I mean, anything that can make racing safer is better, as we know very well after Catalonia. But the problems we get with riders hitting fallen riders is only when the rider on the ground is 3 meters in front of the rider behind him. You know what I mean? And a GPS going beep, 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 the rider has fallen in front of you.
Yeah, last weekend was a bad example.
I mean,
it wouldn't help at all.
If you think of Tomizawa, Dupasquier, Isaac Vinales, all these people that have been killed in the last fight, none of them were killed by falling off and then a bike coming around a corner 10 seconds later.
Yeah, and hitting.
It's
correct. The one I remember is red.
The only time when that would be really useful that I can think of would be at Portimao. When you come over the
Matt, we saw it live on the Red Bull Ring
see.
when after turn 1, somebody was on the ground and the people coming out of turn 1 don't see him. The old turn 2 or 3, the super tight right-hander, there were even MotoGP riders, I think, last year or 2 years ago, standing on the middle of the track with his bike, and people coming don't see it until it's almost too late. So there are situations where it can... Red Bull Ring, they have 2 places that are really lately visible.
Sure, exiting the first corner. No, so I agree with you that there are certain instances.
Yeah. Well, I just don't defend the system. This is how I understand how they tell me it works and where they are looking for. They're looking for...
Even if it just makes it safer at those few corners, that's worth having.
Yeah. Because you're right. In the end, when it's sort of really goes wrong or could have gone wrong horribly is when one rider crashes and then everybody, the group or the rider behind him, within 2 seconds, they will hit him. They can hit him. That's the dangerous moment. If they're later than that, it's only dangerous if they don't see him, which is not often, but can happen.
Yeah, okay, Peter. That all makes sense. I'm not trying to be cynical. Like I say, if it makes certain situations safer, then it's still worth having. If there's certain situations, certain points of the track, certain instance where that would help, it's still worth having. I mean, absolutely. I mean, that just goes back to the whole weird kind of thing that we've been thinking about after Catalonia, how, with racing, it's such a weird thing that do I like the fact that it's dangerous? Well, no, but would I watch it if it wasn't? Well, maybe. I mean, I remember speaking to Casey Stoner. And he said if there was no fear, you wouldn't do it.
No.
And it's like, if you think of a high-rise act in a circus, right? Everybody wants to come and see the high-rise act. There's a guy or a girl 20 meters in the air going across a high wire. Okay, they've got a safety net, but it's still 20, 30 meters. Yeah. It's going to be pretty spectacular if they go. Lots of people love that. Would they go to that same high wire act if the guy or the girl was walking across a wire 30 centimeters above the ground? Of course they wouldn't.
Yeah.
It's a really weird philosophical thing where you don't want it to be dangerous, but the fact that it is
the attraction.
Makes you fascinated by it because the people doing it are dealing with potentially horrific consequences. Mm-hmm. And that's what, to me, gives it a kind of... it's really hard not to sound like a kind of weird danger pervert. You know what I mean?
I completely stopped giving my opinion on many occasions because I sound like the worst possible person on earth. But all I'm doing is bringing it back to the point where it's really all about.
Absolutely.
And after that, and that doesn't mean I don't care. I look at it from a very, very far distance. But I'm honest with myself. If it wasn't dangerous, I walked away.
Yeah.
I didn't walk at all, first of all. But how much danger, Matt, do we accept? And that's where it gets interesting. If I look back over the years, it's a cultural thing. In the 60s, when we started with a whole bunch of MotoGP riders and we finished the year with probably half of them because half of them died, this was a cultural thing. People accepted that, you can die. It was not a shock to anybody. Now we are in a system that if one person dies for whatever reason, wow, the government needs to fall and we need 20,000 investigations to avoid this, and there is no cost spare. So we are living in a whole different time, and this reflects on how we look at racing. That's the point. It reflects on how we look at racing.
Yeah. When I wrote a book that I wrote a long time ago called Stealing Speed, I interviewed Frank Perez, who was a privateer with Norton, and then he went to race for Suzuki, and his wife, Rita, German. who amazingly was like 13, 14 years old during the fall of Berlin in 1945. And her mum dressed her up to look like an old lady. So when they were in the basement of apartments, the apartment they were in, slight history diversion here.
You always find a way to tell you, you wrote a book, B, something that happened in the past. History Channel engaged. And this is a bit like racing. This is why I like military stuff, because it's a bit the same, you know? Oh, yeah.
Because you go, holy fuck, you know, every time there's a story like that. So her mum dressed her up to look like an old lady, and this basement they were in, like 1 week, for 3 days, they had Germans in there with them, you know, fighting, you know, firing machine guns and using it as a navigational base. And then the Russians would turn up and throw the Germans, and then they had 4 days of Russians in there with them. And because it was the basement of the apartment block, all they had to eat and drink was vodka and gherkin, right? I mean, just an amazing image. And the reason I mention it is because when she married Perez, they were going to races all the time, and she decided that the riders were like Spitfire pilots.
Yeah, 100%.
25 would go out.
Yeah.
And 23 would come back. You know?
Yeah, and they knew.
And she used to call them Spitfire pilots, but she said it was just normal.
Yeah.
We were completely used to that because we were used to losing 2 people a day. You know?
So it all comes down to the perception, which is a cultural thing.
Exactly. Anyway, is that? Shall I switch off?
We tend to veer a little bit left or right.
That's what we like. So we also wanted to talk a little bit about ride height devices that will be banned at the end of this year, hooray, but are still being developed, which is quite interesting. And just about whole shot devices, you would think, because they've been talking about getting rid of them at certain races for safety reasons this year, like Phillip Island, you would think after what happened at Barcelona, and whole shot devices, they may not, probably didn't cause the first corner accident that fucked Johann Zarco, but they certainly didn't help. You know, if you got rid of them, it would certainly de-stress.
They increased the chances of something like this happening. 100%. Exactly. They increased it a lot, actually.
Exactly.
Because everybody arrives at the first corner faster and more close together. That's a recipe for disaster. Yeah. Of course this is going to happen.
Why aren't they just going, okay, let's fucking ban them now? Dorna or Liberty just have to say it's a safety thing, and no one can come back at them.
Yeah. You
know, Ducati can cry, Aprilia can cry, all the manufacturers can cry, but that they can say, look, Johann Zarco's in a hospital, his career under threat. It's a safety thing.
Yeah.
Fuck off. You know, why don't they just do it? They're going to be banned in, where are we now? We're in June. 4 or 5 months.
Obviously, they're not going to tell us all the time immediately when it happened, but I will be more than a little bit surprised if in a couple of months we don't hear that, or at least the riders have started to complain about this. If I was a rider, it will be so silly, and I would speak to every man in this dock and say, get rid of this. It doesn't help you, it doesn't help me, it only makes everything more dangerous for everybody. But riders united.
Brings us back to the riders union. Everything comes back to the riders.
Well, I say
union.
it with this care because maybe they are fully on it, but they are also not
now.
The riders. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they all have.
Because if they thought Dorna was sometimes not helpful, they need to be aware of what's going to happen when Liberty fully take charge.
Yeah.
Who have no interest in motorcycles.
Because for the viewers, last week it was beautiful. Racing. For the amount of people watching it. You don't think so?
I don't think it was beautiful, the people watching it, but I think those clips, especially the Marquez crash, because it was so spectacular, that will be shown, that will be shared 1 billion times.
So,
at a rough estimate, over the next,
increasing the chance of people going to follow MotoGP.
So more people will turn on their televisions for Mugello and go, "This is mad shit.
Maybe
I need to watch
again.
this."
It's sick.
Well, they're like us. They're like, "Well, that looks dangerous. Let's check it out." Because, like you say, there's so few dangerous things allowed anymore. Formula One. I think Martin Brundle, the Formula One commentator and presenter in Britain, he's former Formula One driver. he said last year or a year before, about Formula 1 cars are so safe. He said it didn't seem right that the safest place to be in a Formula 1 weekend, safer than any of the grandstands or anything, is in the fucking Formula 1 car,
Yeah.
So therefore, MotoGP more and more stands out. Less so than the Isle of Man TT, but people look at that and go, "What the fuck?
So
how the hell is this allowed?" Let's watch it. That looks crazy shit. Let's watch it.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. Cars and don't start Formula 1.
No.
I want to say something because it is about our perception of danger and where we are as a culture, as a society.
Yeah.
Formula 1 is hugely successful in presenting itself as being super scary and super dangerous and super interesting. Yeah. Well, in the end, it is none of them. If you're not super unlucky, go into the gravel trap and the shovel is there. It's barely impossible to die.
Yeah.
Unpopular opinion, and I hope
absolutely.
That's what it is. But it appears super dangerous, so they're all heroes.
Sure.
But
I mean,
it's not for the danger. It's still tricky what they do.
Sure. This is very tricky, not so dangerous, and this is a massive. I mean, you could do 10 podcasts on this, on the philosophy of watching MotoGP. Yeah. Why do we watch it? Why do we like it? Why do we? Does that make us bad? What is giving us the buzz of watching it? Like I say, if MotoGP was such that the worst thing, like if Alex Marquez had crashed there, he'd torn a fingernail, right? So you could have the worst possible crash in MotoGP, and the worst thing you could do was crack a fingernail. Would people still watch it? I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, like I say, no one wants people to die or get hurt, but it's the frisson of the fact that these guys are going out doing what they do, knowing the potential consequences, but still they do it. And they use their skill and their talent to take what would be stupid risks for the rest of us, and they get away with them.
Yeah.
That to me is what is exciting, But it's a very weird thing. And we could talk about it for weeks, but we're not going to. What we're now going to talk about is ride height devices.
Well,
Peter, go.
Indirectly ride height devices. Indirectly.
Okay.
Not History Channel. I go back only 1 or 2 years when Aprilia started to use the chain guide on the MotoGP bikes. That is a guide that sits on the...
I thought we were going to talk about what Ducati have been doing with their ride height device
okay, we can
first.
start with that one. Start with that one. Perfectly.
Let's do that and then go to
that's the spy.
chain guides.
That's
So Peter's been spying, or someone has.
I'm talking to people even if they don't want me to. And no, nobody... As is often the case with these things, nobody opens the book clearly. But I speak to some people, and some people say something. Some people can only say something. Some other people say what they think. And then after 10 people, I sort of assume that it all comes down to more or less this, if I connect all these dots. Oh, so there I go. What I think is happening since at least the middle of last year at Marc Marquez's Ducati, but probably is all the factory Ducatis, is that they have a clever system that if the ride height devices is in a lowest position and it is mechanical, they at that moment sort of automatically they half block the hydraulics from the shock absorber. So the damping is not longer working. So the shock...
So it's locked the rear end.
Yeah,
it's like it becomes like a... what do you call a Harley Davidson? What do you call them?
Hardtail.
Hardtail, yeah.
Hardtail. Well, not completely. There is a spring, and that's why I said carefully half locking the hydraulics. If you want to move a shock absorber with or without a spring, you're always moving oil from left to right. So if you block that oil, the whole thing becomes solid. So they don't block it, they block it partially. So it's like giving under certain situations a super amount of hydraulic damping to the shock absorber. That's what they do there.
So the rear goes even lower?
If the rear is low, a mechanical system only at that moment decides to close the hydraulic system from the shock, the compression and rebound oil flow that is there. The result is that when the bike sits really low, it has barely any movement left to do with the shock absorber. So it sits super low, and it cannot go lower, and it can also not easily extend anymore. It becomes almost like a solid, super low rider.
Bagger.
Almost like a hardtail. Yeah.
Bagger hardtail.
The fact, this is what I'm quite sure they do, and what they try to gain there, it's just my assumption, is that when the bike is really like broken in the middle, because that's how they appear to us when you look at pictures when the ride height is super low, you still have the chain force effect, the squat or anti-squat effect from the chain, of the top side of the chain is...
Remind me what the squat, when the chain is fully squatted, what does that, has an extra positive result, doesn't it?
Wow, well, how to go here? If imagine the 3 points, the center of the front sprocket, the center of the rear sprocket, which is the wheel pin, and the pivoting point from the swing arm. If these 3 points are in line, that's when the chain is at its most tight position. In MotoGP bikes, the way the bikes I think are made is this swing arm pivot point sits relatively high. So if the wheel is completely extended, you have the chain very, very loose, because you know if it's suspended in, and if we also drop the ride height at the same moment, even then at more or less the lowest possible point, the 3 things are aligned, and then the chain should not be super tight. So to have the chain not too tight when all the 3 points are in line, it will be extremely loose when the suspension is completely extended. Why didn't we have this before? Well, before, without the ride height devices, we could only make 40 millimeter of wheel travel. 40, 50 millimeter of wheel travel. If you make more than 50, you're probably building a high side.
Sure. But the squat, if I read this stuff, I can understand it if I read it very slowly. But does this give you more traction or more? It gives you something, right? If you don't allow the shock to work on a super low position, you either do that because you're already on a super low position, and after that the whole swing arm and the fairing start to touch the ground, so you want to keep it on the lowest possible point. That can be one thing. The other thing is you work the tire more at the moment that there is a lot of load on the tire, and then you work it more because all the movements are going into the tire. You can get more out of the tire.
If your tire is capable of doing it. If you got a tire that's already super hard, it will just spin more.
So in a way, the ride height device, I'm being really basic here because that's how I am. The ride height device, in a way, just gives you more of the kind of squat effect. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
100%. It transfers weight, but it also gives you more effect from the squat effect.
That's one of the ideas, because I always thought that the ride height device was basically to get rid of wheelie by lowering the overall center of mass. But also, it must give this extra traction as well, right?
Yes.
Possibly.
If everything is on the low, let me continue to the maximum position what Ducati reached. They have the bike super low, and then they lock the hydraulics. This means it stays super low until you brake for a long time, and then it extended. Then it has time to extend, and it goes back to its normal position. The result from that, if your bike is super low and your chain is still not too tight, this means when it's extended, it will be extremely tight. So bikes that start to pump over the curbs will have such violent actions on the chain because the chain is in its normal position more loose than it normally would be. This is crucial for my explanation. During normal use, the chain is super loose, and it can act like a snake if you film it with high precision. So you are pulling on the top side, but the low side will first try to follow the front sprocket and sort of a chicane bend coming back to the rear sprocket. I've seen pictures where the chain, where it enters the rear sprocket on the lower side of the wheel, you could look between the chain and the sprocket. For the first 15, 20 centimeters of the sprocket, you could look it, so it didn't touch. Only on the upside, it was in between the teeth.
Yeah. So you're getting much less drive than you should be.
You destroy your chain and your sprocket. If it's super loose, it comes. It doesn't follow the whole sprocket, the chain. It will be loose away from the sprocket. for a big part of its circumference, and therefore it will break itself.
Being an idiot, I need to look at this in graphic ways, and I have to think. If you think of all motorbikes have their drive chain on the left. So if you're looking from the left of the motorbike, you got the engine sprocket on the left, and you got the wheel sprocket, the much bigger wheel sprocket on the right, and the sprocket, the chain is going around in an anti-clockwise way. And if you think about these massive changes in suspension compression, they fuck the chain drive to the rear wheel. So it can be so loose that if the chain is meant to meet the rear sprocket at the bottom of the rear sprocket, right?
Yeah.
And you're saying that it's so loose that it actually doesn't really connect until it should connect at 6 p.m.
Yes. And it can, and I've seen chains that they started to connect at 3.
Yeah.
That's from 12 to 3. That's only a couple of teeth to bring a lot of horsepower, a lot of torque through, which didn't work in the end.
So you're going to destroy and we saw the worst of this with KTM at Misano last year. There must have been certain reason for that, where they actually broke Brad Binder and Pedro Acosta had broken chains, and
if a manufacturer,
which is why they were running chain guides.
Aprilia realized very, very early that they needed this.
They were the first.
KTM later found out, we need it as well. So either they have changed something before Misano, or they came in Misano in an unexpected manner with the bike by being a lot over the curbs and pumping.
KTM broke all those chains at Misano, and then I can't remember whether, I think it's Aprilia, have now got a chain guard above the swing arm.
Well, that's a simple
they've got a
thing
kind of
to
guard
protect.
No, that's what I mean. It's to protect the potentially dangerous result of a chain coming off the sprocket, breaking and going AWOL and possibly injuring the rider's left leg, which is a pretty crazy thing. I mean, I think back to, this is slightly different, but in 1994, History Channel engaged. Le Mans, French Grand Prix, Daryl Beattie crashed his factory Yamaha 500, and because there wasn't a guard on the chain took all the toes off his left foot, every single one of them. Whoosh!
Because his boot came in between the rear sprocket and the tire on the lower side of it, and that was it. That's nasty.
I remember going to see him in hospital in Paris the next morning, and he was enjoying the morphine, I'll say.
Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it. Beautiful stuff.
The next year, when Beattie was still riding, he was riding for Suzuki in 95. He lost his Yamaha ride. And he had a new logo, which was a left foot, with 2 foots, the outline of 2 feet. The one on the right had 5 toes, and the one on the left had no toes, and it just said
all 5.
Yeah, all 5 of them. Whoosh. And the logo, so it had that little logo with the 2 feet, the outline of the both feet, and it said Daryl Beattie hanging 5 in 95 instead of hanging 10, which is a surfing term, isn't it? Hanging 5 in 95. Yeah, poor old Daryl. Top man, by the way. One of my favourite Grand Prix races of all time.
Okay.
Yeah, just such a super cool guy. Super cool.
So to go back to, I think that Ducati.
I digress.
I'm pretty. I think that's why they do it, but Ducati does something there. They do something with the hydraulics from the shock, and I'm pretty sure it is exactly like I said. That's what they are doing. So that's one chapter that we did here, revealing that Ducati does something with the hydraulics during the lowest position of the ride. The other thing is the chain guide. Which Aprilia immediately started using. Then KTM found out in Misano, they need to make one. They really made one overnight, because on the Monday test, they certainly had it on the bike. That was it for quite some time. Yamaha started to use it since the end of last year as well. And since the Jerez test this year, I saw it on one of the factory Ducatis. And I think I've seen it I'm pretty sure I saw it, but I don't have the picture on Alex Marquez's Ducati last weekend on the Friday.
Yeah.
So if Ducati is using suddenly now, I mean, they are the inventors of the ride. I think if they only now start to use a chain guide, then they must have changed something and realized that with this chain, with this change, sorry, look, change, we could be in trouble.
Yeah. They've got it so low now that they even, but their chain guide is different from others. It's got a wheel, hasn't it?
No,
I think
no. It's actually a clever thing. They all have their own ways, and obviously the one from Aprilia is beautiful. But what they're all looking for is a device that also can be adjusted, because if you change your sprons, it has to move with the sprocket, with the wheel to the front and rear. And if they move to a bigger or a smaller sprocket, they have to readjust that thing as well, because it forces the chain to immediately follow all the teeth, which is obviously sort of a nylon or some PTFA, whatever plastic guide that they use, but it has to be really close to the sprocket. The fact that Ducati now is coming with it as well, and I've never seen one on a Honda yet, means they're not doing all exactly the same. They're not having everybody doesn't have the same pivot position where the other one has it, and not everybody goes as low as the other one has it. So there are still some major differences in the chassis of these MotoGP bikes. Must be.
I used to know which chain every factory used. I was that much of a nerd, and now I seem to have forgotten. But I mean, obviously Renault were the were they? No, I don't know. Do you know which?
There is two chain manufacturers that are used at the moment: Regina
DID?
and
Regina and DID.
Yeah, probably. No, not so sure.
Regina being Italian and the kind of, I would say, dominant.
One is 2/3 of the field or 3/4 of the field. Yeah.
It's weird actually, because in the old days, the bikes always had a sticker. If they used DID.
That means you got your sprockets for free.
However big or small it was. And it's kind of weird that they are technical partners now, but I never see a DID or Regina logo anywhere. And when if you look at a factory team or a MotoGP team website, that they will have they will have their title sponsors, and then underneath that will be their technical sponsors. It could be the people that make their radiators, could be the people that make their chains. And I haven't seen a DID or Regina logo for years. Weird. Why wouldn't they do that?
Well, we have for sure a couple of nerds under our listeners, so there will be some comments saying, well, here is the sticker, I don't know, because I was first going to say, well, a chain is not very expensive, and a sticker on a MotoGP bike is expensive at the moment, but they're using chains like 2 in the weekend easily. Yeah. And after every crash, that's interesting as well, immediately change the chain, because you don't know what it went through.
Yeah, it might have.
So that's a lot of change over the year. That's a lot of change. So, and it's not a simple chain. It's relatively small for the amount of power. It's not a production chain. So in the end, it is a costly thing. But you're right. I can't remember the stickers.
Chains are a weird thing, aren't they? Because if you speak to any car engineer, he'll say, why are you using telescopic forks? They're a fucking nightmare. You get stiction in them and this, that, and the other. They're a completely ridiculous solution to the job that they're meant to do. And why are you using drive chains? I mean, they're both ancient solutions, but no one's come up with anything better, have they?
Oh, wow. Now we're going in a whole other direction. The forks we do a separate podcast about, because I've got an opinion there.
I interviewed John Barnard, the Formula One designer. I think, was he the first guy to build a carbon chassis in Formula One for McLaren in the mid-late 80s? The first guy to do a semi-automatic gearbox in Formula One with Ferrari, I think. And he was employed by Team Roberts in the early days of 919 MotoGP. And wow, he was so interesting to talk to.
Yeah.
He was just saying, couldn't believe that people were still using force, and it was his absolute desire to come up with something.
I think at that time there was a Bimoto Tesi already on the road.
Oh, did you ever ride one of them?
No, you did. You tell us now. It was probably not as great as people would make you think it is.
I mean, how many linkages, how many rose joints did they have between the handlebars and the front tyre? About 8 or 9.
And you feel all of them.
No, so when the thing was brand new, it was a nightmare because you're constantly overcorrecting. It's like having a steering damper. If you have a motorbike with a steering damper, you turn it up tight,
Steering head bearings with a hard point in the middle. Exactly. It's a nightmare.
You're getting completely confused information from the front tire. Horrible thing.
The front tire's information is not honest, as Fabio Gianantonio will have told you.
Yeah. Very good. Absolutely.
It's a really beautiful way of explaining, but because it says it all, really.
Yeah.
And that's how we came back to Fabio Gianantonio MotoGP. Yeah, the chain, the shock. I did them all, I think, Matt.
Yeah, no, I think we've covered everything, I think, this week.
1 hour and 6 minutes, and we were thinking that's maybe not enough.
Wild going in this direction and that direction. I actually did write some notes about the, and I wanted to use it because it's nice, about the, talking about the ride height controls. You know, those big aluminium, insanely machined aluminium systems that we see in the nose of a Ducati.
Mm-hmm.
They still keep changing all the time. They're still, even though these things are dead, ride height devices are dead in a few months, they're still coming out with new ones. And the correct word for these, from the guy that created them, is it's a hydraulic, pneumatic, mechanical computer.
Yeah. I used to call it a computer all the time, hydraulic computer, because that's what it is.
But it's hydraulic, pneumatic, and mechanical. Wow. Yeah, I mean, no wonder these...
All because electronics are not allowed.
No, exactly.
You want to do
things
with mechanics because electronics are not allowed. So you end up with really complicated, heavy systems.
They banned electronic suspension in, I think, 1993, something like that, MotoGP.
Yeah, Oedens came up with the hydraulic, with some preload adjusters that was doing the preload turn by turn with the GPS. Yeah. There we are, GPS.
But also Showa are using them as well.
And immediately everybody got scared. Take it away.
No, that was before GPS. This was in the early 90s. Okay. So they were literally semi-active, I think is the word.
The ones I remember with Oedens in the Superbike team in Yamaha in 2007, 8, 9.
Oh, really?
And that was with
That's
GPS.
Because they weren't banned. But they banned electronic suspension in the mid-1990s in MotoGP.
Wow.
Yeah. And they assumed that they had banned adjustable suspension. That was the whole point. We're going to ban adjustable suspension, so you aren't allowed electronic suspension. And Gigi Dall'Igna was like, hang on a minute. Okay, so it doesn't say we can't have adjustable suspension. It just says we can't have electronic adjustable suspension. So let's give my mate who works at Mercedes, a certain Mr. Robin Tallui, a phone call and say, can you make one of those hydraulic, pneumatic, mechanical computers that you made for Mercedes F1 car for my Ducati MotoGP bike? And he said, yes, of course I can. That'll be about 10 minutes. I'll send it over.
It's a terrible task to work for Donna and have to write the technical regulation because it's you, and you can call 1 or 2 or 3 mates to have a look over it. Then it goes all over the world to all the manufacturers. They send immediately 20 engineers over, and they look for every possible small hole and gray area and will fill it in at their will. And then you have to readjust again, and then they do again.
Yeah. That's why the 1999 MotoGP technical regulations book is like 90 pages. And this year's one is about 370 pages because they're having to fill in all those holes. You know?
That people found.
Yeah. Are we done now?
I'm going to say yes.
The reason I'm drinking wine, if anybody's watching this on YouTube, is because I'm on holiday now. I'm going to Wales to walk up and down mountains tomorrow. So I'm kind of already on holiday.
You've got a mountain to climb.
I'm going to stay, literally and metaphorically. Yeah, so that's why I'm already on holiday, if you couldn't already tell. So I think we're done, apart from... Before we say goodbye, if you're a brand that wants to get in touch with us, we already had off-track experiences with us for a few races. They were very happy with what they did with us, and we are working with an agency called the Smash Brand Group out of Sydney to build sort of corporate partnerships. Well, I wouldn't say corporate; it's hardly corporate, is it? To build partnerships with the Oxley Bomb MotoGP podcast. So if you're interested in getting involved, whether you're huge or tiny, go onto their website, which is the smashbrandgroup.com.au. That's smashbrandgroup.com.au, and get in touch.
And the reason I think you should, or people should do it, is because it's, I'm not a businessman at all. You just sounded like a very cunning businessman earlier in this podcast bio. But
no,
kill me if I'm wrong. But we have 13, 14, 15,000 downloads every week. People listen to us. And these are the people, in my assumption, they change their own oil, they change the brake pads, they buy their helmets, very carefully choose the helmet and the tires. If I was a tire, helmet, brake pad, oil manufacturer, I would love Peter Bomm and Matt Oxley and be in their podcast, because this is a high quality of audience, you would say, probably, as a marketing guy. But we don't find these people ourselves, so we need an agency. Beautiful. The best thing I love.
That was the best advert I've ever heard in my life, Peter.
Yeah, but that's really cunning. Sounding really, really honest. I'm really honest. But in the end, we are very lucky and happy, and maybe we deserved it. I don't know. But this Smash Group they are really fitting to us, because they sound like they are obviously professional marketing guys, but at the same time, they are listening to our podcast. And they are racing motorbikes themselves. So, if you want to do something with us, speak to them, because they also speak your language and our language, and you'll not get confused. But please pay us the big bucks. Cool. We need them.
How about, can you do an advert for some dandruff shampoo now, please, Peter? Come on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
How much does it? No, sorry.
Okay. All right. I thought you had a new career in front of you then, but no. All right. I think we're done now.
We have
had enough of us. Yeah, I think you've all had enough of us by now. I'm off on holiday. We will be back. Looking forward to can't wait to go to Mugello. It's going to be an interesting weekend.
There I am again. Mugello, we're planning to do, we promise here to do, again, extra content for the lovely people that pay us the €4 every month automatically, because we have quite likely on Thursday, you and me, whether you want it or not, talk about the track. You can do your history channel about Mugello, and I'm going to explain what the track is for the bikes to ride around and for the riders. Yeah. And we have a Friday and Saturday update there, which I think is great content for the fans, because we don't repeat what happened. We just try to tell why and how it happened.
Yeah. So basically, for our Patreon supporters, we do a track podcast on the Thursday, telling all about the place. Update on Friday after practice. Update on Saturday after the sprint and qualifying. And all for the bargain price of not very much. I really think we should fuck off now. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Sam, our producer. We will speak to you next weekend. Bye-bye.